In this video, we'll talk about a lot of HTML tags. We've already talked about the H1 tag a little bit, but we also have H2 tags all the way to H6 tags. We've also already talked about paragraph tags. And now let's talk about line breaks. If you notice, if I press enter down here, you see that there's not any more lines showing up on my web page. And that's because web browsers ignore all of the white space that you put in it. Well, not all of it, because it does include a single space. So if we put a single space between two things, we get a single space on the output. But if I put more than one space, we still get more spaces out here. So white spaces are kind of ignored. So for that reason, if we do want extra lines between our text, we can use a BR tag, which stands for break, and that will put it on two separate lines. We'll talk about how to add extra spaces when we talk about special entity characters, but we can add more of these tags as we go along. And this closing slash, we can have it or not. That's optional whether you include it. It's just this editor automatically includes it when I type it. So those are line breaks. And then we also have the horizontal rule, and you can see that that puts the line across our screen in the browser. Also, we have a block quote tag, which is if you're going to quote a lot of text from another website or from some other source, if it's a big long quote, more than say one sentence, then we'd use a block quote tag, and that indents the text a little bit and lets the search engine know that this is a quote from some other source. So now we're going to talk about phrase elements. And phrase elements are tags that we can put in a block of text or lines of text to select certain words or maybe an entire sentence so we can do something different with that sentence. So one of the phrase elements is the strong phrase element. And so we put two tags in between some words. And if you notice over here, we do not get any more line breaks. It just takes those words and makes them appear strong, or in this case, bold. Now we can decide how it looks later on, but all we're saying is we want this text to look stronger than the text around it. There's also an EM for emphasis, and the emphasis tags put our text into italic by default. But again, we can decide how that looks later on. We're really just letting know who the search engines know that this text is emphasized or appear different than the text around it. Now, there are other phrase elements, and I suggest you go to the notes to get a list of all of them, but there is also a mark that allows us to highlight some text. And we also have abbreviations and others, and you can look up those phrase elements, but if you notice, none of these phrase elements caused any line breaks or extra spaces to show up in our text. They just cause stuff to get highlighted or become bold, italic, or some other thing like that. Now let's talk about special entity characters. And special entity characters are symbols that we want to put into our HTML that we can't just type from our keyboard. And so one of those symbols happens to be maybe the copyright symbols. We can put a copyright symbol, and all of these special entity characters start with an ampersand and end with a semicolon. And you can either put a name in between here, or you can put a hashtag with a number, and the browser looks up what symbol that is and puts that symbol on the web page. So a couple of important symbols might be the ampersand sign, because the ampersand starts a special entity character. If we really want the ampersand to show up in our text, then we need a special entity character for that. And you can see that that puts a single ampersand in our text. And also, because our tags start with less than and greater than signs, we can't just put less than and greater than signs and expect it to show up in our text all the time. Now, this is an error, but sometimes it does show those up. But the way to make it show up the real way would be to be ampersand LT for less than, and then we can do an ampersand GT for greater than. So there are a big list of special entity characters that you can look up on the notes, or just do a search for HTML special entity characters, and you get a list of all the different special entity characters. And it will also show you the other format where you can use a hashtag and a number for a special entity character instead. Another important special entity character, if we want more spaces in here, could be an NBSP, which stands for non-breaking space. So you can see that the space between these two words grew a little bit. So if we do want to put extra space in between words, we can use the non-breaking space special entity character. Now let's talk about lists. And lists create a list of items on our page. Now there are three types of lists. The first type is an unordered list, meaning the order of these items is not important. They're all equal. We just want to list out some items. Now it's important to know that we have a starting unordered list tag with a closing unordered list tag, and then inside we have list item tags. And we can't put any other type of tag in between these. So we shouldn't be able to put a paragraph tag in here. We can't do that. We can't put like an H2 tag or anything like that. We have to have just list items inside of our unordered list. But what we can do is we can put some tags in here, like we can put an H1 tag inside. So we can put an H1 tag inside of a list item or even a paragraph tag inside of list items. That's all okay, but we can't put the paragraph tag inside of the UL itself. We can only have list items inside of here. Now, the other kind of list, this is the second kind of list, is we can have an ordered list, and this means the order of the items is important. And as you can see, we have numbers that number the items in our list. Now, if we don't like the numbers being in front of there, then we can use, say, capital letters or lowercase letters, or we can use lowercase Roman letters or uppercase Roman letters by using this type right here. Now, you do not use a type on an unordered list. It doesn't make sense because we only get bullet points or unordered lists. So the third kind of list is a description list. And a description list allows you to have both a title and a description of that title. So here we have this title, and here is the description, and this is how they look on the web page. We can have as many of those as we want. So a description list isn't as popular, but sometimes that might be the best thing to choose to describe your data.